I suppose we should do some... Have we got a James Bond clip? Have we got a clip? Okay, well, we're going to play a James Bond clip in a minute. I'll do the music, shall I? There you go, that's set it up, hasn't it? Basically, James Bond is 70 years old on April the 13th in just a few days. The first 007 novel, Casino Royale, was published on April the 13th, 1953. Surely the most successful fictional character of all time. Ian Fleming made a fortune from it, and of course James Bond continues to dominate the cultural scene. So why has this character been so successful? Let's talk to the host of the Really 007 podcast, Tom Pickup. Afternoon, Tom. Can you explain why 70 years after Ian Fleming's first novel, 007 novel, Casino Royale, James Bond is bigger than ever? What is the secret behind this extraordinary phenomenon?
It's escapism, isn't it? It's somebody who is British, and there's not a lot of British heroes around, you could say, certainly all the way back to the 50s and the 60s. And then when they became films, they became global, massive successes. And because we've had so many different takes on James Bond, you know, we've had very serious Bonds like Daniel Craig's current Bond, all the way to Roger Moore, who's just been a fun Bond who, in fact, is the kind of Bond you'd want to watch on a bank holiday. So, you know, it caters to all tastes, I think.
Who's your favourite Bond? Which of the actors?
Yeah, I think if I wanted to throw on one now, it would be Roger. But here at our podcast, we love Timothy Dalton, who has been not really appreciated enough, we think, because he only did 2 films. But he sort of did what Daniel Craig did before it became famous. His 2 Bonds are very sort of serious, but they've also got a bit of fun in them.
Yeah,
but yes, you can see Sean there. There's no one better than Sean. You can't deny that.
Oh yeah, he was the man, wasn't he? Lighting a cigarette there. Of course, in the books, in the James Bond books, breakfast for James Bond was 4 hard-boiled eggs, nothing else, a pot of coffee, and 4 cigarettes. So yeah. The smoking angle was still in the films then. Roger Moore dropped it, but actually, you referred to Timothy Dalton. He brought it back. I believe, I may be wrong, I think Pierce Brosnan might have smoked a bit as well in his James Bond films. But, bit of personal information.
Here we go. Here we go.
Ali Ross knew I was going to say this. I went on the set, I went to Morocco for the filming of...
yes.
Was it A View to a Kill? Was that...
I think it might be Living Daylights.
Living Daylights, that's right. Yeah. So I went to Morocco on the set of that. And went for dinner with Timothy Dalton. Nice guy, nice guy. Not necessarily the most effusive of interviewees.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah. What was the headline, Kevin?
It was I like fishing.
Yeah, license to brill.
License to brill. There you go.
Very clever.
But so yeah, I mean Timothy Dalton, an underrated Bond.
Yeah, he was, because I think when we were growing up, we were sort of the age where there'd been a gap between his last Bond film, Timothy Dalton's in '89, and Pierce Brosnan rejuvenating it in '95. So all we did was look back at the old videos we had. And I think Timothy Dalton's were then the most modern. And his take on it, they still stand up, those 2 films. And we've spoken to we've spoken to the director, John Glenn, we've spoken to loads of the actors involved. And they all say they loved Timothy. They thought he was a gentleman. He really took it seriously. But I think in the end, he's not a celebrity, you know, he doesn't like the attention. And I think it was a bit too much for him to sort of continue it into the 90s.
Exactly right. I can tell you that from personal experience. As I say, he's a nice guy, but trying to get information out of Timothy Dalton was like trying to get blood out of a stone. He wasn't at home in the media firestorm. And that, I think, is one of the things about playing Bond. You know, Roger Moore was a past master at publicity. You know, what was his catchphrase?
Yeah.
I do all my own stunts and all my own lying. And so on and so forth. So that was probably why Timothy Dalton didn't really work out. I don't think he liked it much. Funnily enough, though, I never thought Daniel Craig was all that comfortable in the spotlight, but was a very successful Bond.
Yeah, that's right, isn't it? There's 2 things, isn't there? There's being an actor in a role, which most actors do, and they don't have to worry about the publicity and the promotional stuff. But when you Bond, you Bond in the streets. When people come up to you, you're James Bond, and you have to sort of act to please the fans. And I think eventually Daniel Craig, I think he said he spoke to Hugh Jackman, who said basically, look, I'm Wolverine, and I've had to put up with this. Just embrace it, enjoy it. And I think after that, I think it was around Skyfall that he really did a bit more of that. Because, yeah, Roger and Pierce, they loved it. They were lovely to go up to. You could chat Bond with them. And I think that's really who we want for the next Bond, somebody who really embraces the role.
Yeah, I mean, what do you think about that? It should be a bloke, shouldn't it? I mean, don't give me any of this, it's going to be a girl. What would you feel about an actor of colour playing Bond?
Yeah, well, it's definitely going to be a man. I think Barbara Broccoli, one of the two producers, has said it will be a man. Yeah, I think the colour thing's interesting because, one hand, you could say the books, if you're basing it purely on the books, then he's a white guy with dark hair, but Daniel Craig had blonde hair, so, you know, and he was only 5'10", so you can have it as certainly you can have a black actor or whatever, as long as they envisage the character of James Bond. But I think it'd be interesting to see who they're going to cast, because there's, you know, at the moment there doesn't really seem to be much progress made since Daniel Craig's last appearance.
I want to talk to you about this lavish holiday that you can go on now, costing up to £60,000, a 12-day trip all around the world to go to some of the most glamorous Bond locations, Italy, France, etc. But before we get to that, I want to ask you, do you fear, because I do, and I know my friend Ali Ross probably fears it as well, that there's a danger that James Bond is getting wokeified? You know, the last film with Daniel Craig was all about him falling in love and all that kind of stuff. I don't really want that. I want James Bond to be a hard-drinking, hard-smoking man about town and a seducer of women.
Yeah, you can have all that, but not be offensive to anybody. You can have him as a character who is flawed, which he always was. Because he's a hero, I think people are like, well, you have to look up to him, but he can't make any mistakes. He's got to be politically correct. But then you do lose the character. And I think if you go back to the more enjoyable films, yes, he might say the odd inappropriate comment, but he's not meant to be perfect, and let's embrace that.
What's your favourite scene in any Bond movie? I've got one. My favourite scene is Thunderball. I think it was Thunderball. The punch-up with Sean Connery and the bloke dressed as a woman at the funeral,
yes,
remember? In the bathroom, and they had a hell of a fight. And eventually Sean Connery gets the bloke in the dress into the bath. And as he's getting out, he gets hold of the fire, the electric fire, throws it into the bath. The guy gets electrocuted to death, and James Bond turns to the camera and goes, "Shocking."
Yeah.
Shocking.
It's that death quip, isn't it?
Yeah.
He was so cool that he was great in the fight, and then when he's killed him, he's onto just having a little joke about
it. What's your favourite?
Which is what we love.
What's your favourite scene?
I think there's been so many. I think of the more recent ones. Pierce Brosnan's introduction as Bond when he did the bungee jump. Can you remember that?
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, and that was the first you'd seen of him as a new Bond, and it was an amazing introduction to him because you hadn't seen his face. He deliberately didn't show it until he'd sort of got into it. And the first time you saw his face was when he was upside down, going into a gents' toilet, if you remember.
You see, those were the days.
Out the bad guy.
See, those were the days, Tom, when they had gents' toilets. You know, it'd be gender fluid now, wouldn't it? Listen, I've got another favourite scene, and we're going to play a little clip in a minute. But Roger Moore at the opening scene of one of the scenes, and he kind of skis off everything, and he ends up coming into the town on skis, smashes through a window into a ladies' outfitter's shop, and there's these women looking through the dress, and he sort of dusts him down the snow, and they're all going like, he goes, "Ladies," and then he walks out.
That's Roger, isn't it, though? He's so good at
ladies. Right, let's play this clip.
Mr.
Bond. James Bond.
Who are you?
Bond. James Bond.
Who are you?
My name is Bond. James Bond.
The name's Bond. James Bond. Bond. James Bond.
The name's Bond. James Bond.
Bond.
James Bond.
So I went to university with a guy, and he wasn't a particularly good-looking guy, Tom, but he had a great success rate with women because he used to go up to them at parties and he'd go, "My name is Bond, Brian Bond." that was actually his name, but that's it. My name is Bond, James Bond. It doesn't seem like it could be the signature, iconic line, but it is, isn't it?
It's simple, and I think before that, you think now, look, that sounds so obvious and basic, but that was the first time someone had introduced themselves by having the surname and then both the names, which, again, it sounds silly now, but the way Sean Connery did it, I think you've shown the clip there in Dr. No, that every actor now who becomes the next Bond gets really nervous when they think, I'm going to have to say this line, it can't be like Sean, and I think Roger said he could only think of it doing a Scottish accent. So it does become a sort of millstone around the neck, doesn't it? But yeah.
He was just going to ask fellow Scotsman Ali Ross. He was the best at My Name is Bond, James Bond.
Oh, I worship Sean Connery. And there's a clip there in it's Goldfinger where he's getting a massage by the pool, and Felix Leiter comes along, and he says, the girl's name is Dink. Dink meet Felix. Felix meet Dink, and he just whacks her on the backside and goes, "Run along, man talk." Yeah, I wouldn't get away with that.
You wouldn't get away with that now, would you? A quick word, Tom, if we can, about this amazingly glamorous holiday that Bond fans can go on. It goes all around the world, goes to places like Lake Como, where they filmed Casino Royale. They go to the Hotel de Crillon in France. They go to, I think, the Caribbean. And it can cost, if you get all... And there's going to be, like, characters from the James Bond movies. We'll meet you, people who've been in the films. They go to the top of those Alpine mountains where they filmed some of those scenes, and it could cost 60,000 quid. But I suppose for a big fan like you and a rich guy like you, that you'll be going on that holiday pretty soon, will you?
Yeah, I'm a big fan, but I'm not a rich fan, unfortunately. I think the deposit was 10 grand, I think, per person. Yeah. So there is a market for that. Of course, it's such a big thing that there will be enough people to do it. But we like, at our podcast, we like to sort of think that there should be things for everybody as well. That's all well and good. But if they do events that can include everybody for free or for not much money, that'd be great. But yeah, when with my wife, I cheekily try and go on holidays, which happen to be in Bond locations, and then say, "Oh, sorry, no, actually, I didn't realise it was. But this mountain here, let's go up it." Yeah.
Listen, Tom, it's been brilliant to talk to you, and I should tell everyone that they should listen to your Really 007 podcast, right?
Thank you. Yeah, we're on YouTube as well, so you can watch us too.
I'll have a look myself, mate. Great to talk to you. All the best. That was Tom Pickup, host of the Really 007 podcast.